Oiling for the variable cam. This pulls oil from the block down there and it goes up into that cam cap. And from the cam cap, it goes into the variable cam solenoid. The way the variable cam works is the computer sends out power to this little solenoid, which then duty cycles a certain amount of oil into that cam gear. And depending on that duty cycle, it can actually change the location of that cam gear relative to the cam. And by doing so, it can change the location of the cam relative to the crankshaft, essentially changing the cam timing. Next, we'll put on the valve covers. I've had these powder coated wrinkle red. And for years, I thought it was originated by Honda on the Type R engines. And then recently I've realized that that's absolutely not the case. Ferrari's been doing wrinkle red valve covers since the 50s, and it turns out that Testarossa actually means redhead. And Ferrari has wrinkle red valve covers for 50, 60 years now. And everybody's been, I think, biting them. So I've added a little bit of silicone in the corners of the cam caps. And this is an area where the oil can often leak. So a little bit of silicone there can make sure that you don't have a leak in that section. You can also see where we added the AN fittings to the valve covers for the crankcase breathing system. We're actually going to utilize both of the knock sensors on the engine. And this is another area you have to watch out for. So I've masked off that area when I painted the block because I want to make sure that the knock sensor is directly on the actual metal block and making sure that we torque it, because depending on the torque, the knock sensor will actually output a different strength signal. Next, we've got the cam sync sensor. So this sensor tells the computer where that intake cam is in relation to the crankshaft. So now we're putting the timing covers on. It's a bit hacked up to fit the different water port that we've got on here. This car, instead of having a normal mechanical driven water pump, it's got an electric water pump, and it's got dash 20 fittings for both of the lines. Here's the crank damper. So I'll go ahead and put some anti-seize on the inside of the crank pulley and then install it onto the crankshaft snout. And it didn't quite just push on that easy. And look, you can use the pulley bolt to push on your crank pulley, but only if it's really easy to go on. Like, this is super easy and didn't have much resistance at all. But if you do have some resistance, you'll want to use a specific installation tool, because if you put too much force on this pulley bolt, you can mess up the threads inside the crank, and you're going to have a real bad day if you mess up the threads. The torque on this pulley bolt is actually 239 foot-pounds. It's really crazy high. It pretty much maxes out the torque wrench. In order to get that much torque, I've got to lock the crank from turning. So what I've done is I've put a couple of flywheel bolts into the back of the crankshaft and wedged a pry bar in there so the crankshaft can't turn. So thanks for watching. I had a lot of fun building the 2JZ. If you want to see more of this content, please consider subscribing. Thank you.